In Harper County, a mysterious woman with a sack on her head pleads for it to be removed, but the truth she hides is far more terrible than it seems. A judge, hiding behind sanctity, was kidnapping and murdering women, and no one dared to stop him. But a solitary cowboy named Jed opened the sack, and the world could no longer stay silent. But just listen to how shocking the turn of this drama was, and why justice, in the end, prevailed. Oklahoma, 1883. The dusty sun was setting over the prairies, painting the sky in shades of scorched gold. Jed Harper was driving his wagon, loaded with provisions, past scorched pastures and swaying grasses. He was alone, as he had been for most of the past few years. After he lost his wife in a fire and buried his younger brother, he stopped believing in God's grace and became a man who sought no company. But that evening, the road threw him something that sent a chill down his spine. On the fence of his far field, right beneath a cliff, a woman was sitting. She was barefoot, and a sack was pulled over her head, as if she had locked herself in a bag like some animal. She wore a faded skirt, a once white blouse, her hands folded in her lap. And she didn't move. Jed stopped the wagon. "Are you all right, ma'am?" The woman was silent. Then she stirred, as if she shivered. He approached closer, holding back his unease. Was this a prank? An ambush? Or something worse? She spoke softly, as if afraid the wind would hear. "Please, I'm begging you. What happened? Take me with you. Anywhere. Ma'am, who are you? What's on your head?" He stepped closer and saw that the sack was tightly tied with twine. The woman sobbed. "Not now, please, just not now. Who did this to you?" She only shook her head. And that's when he saw her hands bore the marks of burns. Old blood, faded with time, had left stains on her wrists. He didn't ask any more questions. He simply helped her up and put her in the wagon. All the way to his house, she sat in silence with the sack on her head, like a scarecrow. Only her breathing short, ragged gave away that she was still inside. Jed wasn't the kind of man to let strangers across his threshold. But this was different. She wasn't asking for shelter. She was asking to be saved from something. Or from someone. He reheated the leftover stew and placed a mug of tea in front of her on the table. She didn't touch it. She only clenched her fingers. "You can stay for the night," he said. "But tomorrow I'll take you to town." "No." It was the first word she said loudly. "No, you can't." "Why?" "Who is looking for you?" A pause. A quiet voice. "If you take off the sack, you'll understand."
I ask you to like and subscribe to the channel, so you will help me in motivation to make such great stories for you, and I will see that you like them. Enjoy watching, everyone.
His hand froze. He looked at her. She was trembling all over. He stepped closer, leaned down. His fingers touched the knot on the sack. "Please, I beg you, take them off," she whispered. He untied the twine. When he removed the sack, he froze. The world stopped. His heart pounded as if it were trying to tear itself from his chest. Before him sat a young woman with wounds, as if her face had been cut with glass, and scars running across her forehead, cheek, and even her lip. But what stopped him wasn't in those scars. It was her appearance. He knew this face. He couldn't not know. "This can't be," he breathed out. Because before him sat Maybelline Stone, a woman who, 3 years ago, had been declared hanged for the murder of a judge and the disappearance of children from a local mission. But she was alive. And she was sitting in his house. And he had just taken the sack off her, for which someone, somewhere, would very much like to kill him. Jed Harper sat on the edge of the bed, as if the ground beneath him could give way. Before him Maybelline Stone. Alive, real, breathing. He knew this face and knew that it should have belonged to a dead woman, buried 3 years ago. "But you?" His voice trembled. "You were hanged." Maybelline looked at him for a long time. "No, I was given up." "What?" "It wasn't an execution. It was a warning." She slowly moved her hair away from her face, and it became clear that the scars weren't just disfiguring. They had been salted. On purpose. So they would never truly heal. "They wanted me to never lift my eyes again," she continued. "So that everyone who saw me would turn away. So that I would no longer be a person." Jed looked at her, trying to comprehend that everything he knew was a lie. The newspapers wrote about how the mad widow Stone had poisoned Judge Talbot and drowned 3 children. At that time, the whole county wanted blood. The crowd at the gallows rejoiced. "Then who?" he broke off. "Who is in your grave?" Maybelline looked toward the window. A little girl. From the mission. The one who asked me to hide her. No, I didn't kill her. She died before we got to the river. From cholera. And her body, her voice broke. I used her to escape. I wrapped her in my dress, left my ring. Everything that was mine. And I wrapped myself up, disfigured myself, and disappeared. God, I know it's a sin. But otherwise I would have died. I knew too much. I saw too much. Jed felt something clench inside him. What did you see, Maybelline? She looked straight into him. Judge Talbot, he was selling children. Through the mission. The orphans were taken one by one, and no one ever returned. And when I raised a fuss, he accused you. He made it all look like I was the killer. Silence fell like a stone. Late that night, Jed went out into the yard to clear his head. His horse was nervously shaking its head in the corral. The moon was bright, too bright, restless. He suddenly realized that if what Maybelline had said was true, then someone else knew she was alive. Otherwise, she wouldn't be hiding. Otherwise, she wouldn't have come to his fence with a sack on her head, like a dog cast out of a pack. In the morning, when he woke up, she wasn't in the house. Only the sack was neatly placed on the table again. But next to it a piece of torn fabric from a petticoat lay. On it was written in charcoal, "If they find me here, they will burn everything. Leave. Forget me." He snapped. He ran to the barn. Neither the wagon nor Maybelline. Only tracks, fresh ones, leading toward the hills. And on the fence, where she had been sitting yesterday, there was now a dead crow, nailed with a spike. On a piece of parchment a sprawling inscription. The sack wasn't for her. It was for the truth. And you took it off. Maybelline ran all night, barefoot, in a torn shirt, with a sewn-up sack in her hand, in which she had once hidden her face. Now it was her reminder. No one could be trusted. Not even those who looked at you with compassion. Jed, he was different. She felt it. But by his side, she wasn't just dying, she could ruin him. That's why she left. However, she left too late. Are you sure she was here? Sheriff Keller asked, standing in the middle of Yet's yard. On his belt dangled a whip handle. Not for horses. I live alone, Jed answered dryly. If someone was here, they passed by. Then, why does the house smell of a woman? Another man chimed in, a man with a polished face and fingers like a preacher's. But in his eyes ash, not light. I'm not a sniffer, Jed growled hoarsely. You know who she is, said a third. His face was half burned as if someone had once tried to erase the truth from his skin. Jed didn't answer. The sheriff looked him over. She didn't just kill the judge. She broke a chain. What chain? The one that holds order. A woman can't burn down a church and stay alive. She didn't do that. Silence. Now they knew for sure. He knew. Maybelline was walking along the bed of a dried-up creek. Her skin was raw, but her steps were fast. She had to reach the canyon before dark. They're an old mine. No one had looked in there since the children disappeared 20 years ago. But as the sun began to fall, they caught up to her. Well, there you are, you witch, a voice rasped from behind her. She spun around, but there were 3 of them. All in black cloaks. No stars. No names. Only their eyes like dogs trained on blood. They threw her into the dust. One pulled out a knife. You broke the deal, he said. You were supposed to die on the rope, as an example. But you decided to come back. Decided someone would pity you? Maybelline spat in his face. He hit her in the stomach and, in the moment she doubled over in pain, a shot rang out from the bushes. The bullet entered the man's neck. The other turned around and saw Jed. He was standing with a rifle, with the raw fury he had held inside for so many years. Let her go. You don't know who you're messing with, Harper. I do. With those who buried the truth along with the children. They lunged at him, but the shots were accurate. One in the chest, another in the shoulder, the third in the head. Later, by the mine, he sat next to Maybelline while she wiped the blood from her face. Why did you come back? She asked. Because you told the truth. And I stayed silent for too long. And now what? He looked into the distance, where the crimson sunset sliced the sky like a cut. Now all the others will come. In the distance, in town, a man was reading a telegram. She's alive. Harper is with her. The bodies were found. Everything has fallen apart. He put down the paper, carefully wiped his pen and said, "Then the hunt begins." At dawn, they left the mine. Jed understood, if they were found here, not even he could protect her. He had killed for the sake of truth, but truth had no protection in this county. Maybelline walked in silence. She was wearing Yet's old jacket, pants cinched at the waist with a rope. In her hands she carried that same sack. All that was left. "We can't go to town," he said. "But if we get to the military post at Fort Hammond, at least they'll listen to you. Mia no. But them yes." He looked at the sack. "You want to show what's in there?" he asked. She stopped. "If I don't show it, everything will repeat itself. They will choose another judge. The women will be silent again. The children will disappear. Next time, no one will escape. Then show me." She knelt down, carefully untied the knots, opened the sack. And then Jed froze. Inside were not masks. Inside were faces. Faces cut from the victims. Not out of cruelty, but as evidence. All of them women and children. Some were mummified, some were still fresh, neatly wrapped in canvases with names embroidered in thread. A sister, a daughter, a mother, a neighbor, a student. Maybelline closed the sack. The judge kept them in the church cellar, under the confessional. I was one of them. The only one. He left a face so I would tell, but no one would believe. Then I burned him. But the church didn't just catch fire, it exploded. There was a stash of saltpeter there. I survived. He didn't. Jed slowly sat down. He didn't know what to say. By evening they reached an old mail coach track. They were already waiting there. At first they thought it was help. But when a man in a black frock coat came out of the bushes, Jed knew this was the end. "Mr. Harper, miss, I don't know your current name. You have done terrible things." "We brought proof," Maybelline said and held out the sack. "Yes, the man took the sack. And that is precisely why you cannot live." He stepped back. A pop was heard. They didn't hear a gunshot, they only felt something hit the air. The bullet passed an inch from Maybelline's head. "Run!" Jed yelled. She darted to the side. Jed lunged forward, tore the sack from the official's hands, and threw it into the fire. The canvas burst into flames. "No!" the man screamed. "You don't understand what you've done." "Oh, I understand," Jed growled. "I burned their lies. And now they stink up the whole county." Shots rang out. One hit Jed in the shoulder, the second in his stomach. He fell to his knees. Maybelline, grabbing a dead man's revolver, fired. She killed one. The second man wounded her, but she crawled to Jed. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I couldn't protect you. You did more. You heard me." 2 days later, a riot broke out in the county. Old wounds reopened. Women spoke. Priests disappeared. Vaults were opened. Newspapers wrote, "Cult of Silence in Western County exposed." A year later, by the rocks, a woman with a scar and a child in her arms looked into the distance. On her belt hung a small bag of ashes. All that was left of what would never be again. She no longer wore a sack on her face, only the truth in her voice.